Today is Birth Control Pills Day, so let's talk a little bit about their history and problematic past. Birth control pills and the birth control movement is largely attributed to Margaret Sanger, a former nurse whose story is both pioneering and problematic. On May 9, 1960, the FDA approved the world's first commercially produced birth control pill called Enovit 10. But before it was approved, there had to be testing, right? You see where I'm going with this? Clinical tests for the pill started in the early 1950s at Harvard by a biochemist and a gynecologist. Now, initially, small-scale tests were done on rats and rabbits. Here's where the sketchiness starts. Dr. John C. Rock graduated from Harvard and then ended up being a clinical professor of gynecology there. He started an infertility clinic, formerly known as the Free Hospital for Women, and because Harvard was a teaching hospital, he realized he had increased access to patients. He had already been working on combinations of synthetic hormones and then started testing them on his low-income patients. So at the same time, a professor of physiology, Gregory Pincus, was also working with hormones. Now, this is also a guy who's quoted as not believing that people should have sexual freedom, but that's another video. Okay, so they join up and start trials. They aren't really happy with the results. People are dropping out of the trials, so they realize they need more patients. So part of the reason they were even working on this was to solve the overpopulation issue, especially by people that they saw as inferior. It was a way of rationalizing working on non-consenting people. So these guys realized they need money to make these trials happen. Enter Catherine McCormick, a widow who came into a lot of money and had also worked with Margaret Sanger on birth control efforts. Now, McCormick isn't unscathed in this because in a frustrated letter she wrote to Margaret Sanger, she said that she wanted a cage of ovulating females to experiment with. Meanwhile, Pincus is still performing unauthorized small-scale experiments on patients. He also had an idea. Why not use the chronic psychotic patients at a nearby hospital, people who were not able to give or withhold any kind of consent or permission? But he was completely unfazed. He continued to experiment on mentally ill patients, and even though the side effects were questionable, he quietly sent the drugs to some of his female family members. People are telling him this is not working, and he's just not listening. He's saying that the side effects are psychogenic, meaning that women are expecting them, so they're happening. So where do they end up? Puerto Rico. Part 2 coming soon.